to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 54. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And tonight's going to be a fun show. We are talking about the most anticipated books of 2014. And we have several that we are really, really anxiously awaiting. So yeah. This will be fun.
And, you know, some of the ones I'm anxiously awaiting now are your fault.
Okay, that's fair enough. One of the ones I'm anxiously awaiting is your fault, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's an even trade, I guess.
But before we talk about that, a couple of things. First, we wanted to let everyone know next week we will be discussing the next Tavern Book Club over at the Malorian Tavern, and that is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. And I nominated this book, but not because it was a book that I really, really, really enjoyed and wanted everybody to read. It was because it was a book that really irritated the crap out of me, and I needed to know whether it was just me or because I've heard other people speak very highly about this book, so I needed a whole bunch of other people that I know and that I kind of know their reading tastes to read this and then see maybe it was just me, maybe it was me at the time when I read it. You know how sometimes you're not in the mood for certain things and you just kind of end up reading it anyway? So maybe it was that. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to talk about that next week. And then for tonight, we should go ahead and talk about what books we are currently reading.
I just started book 3 of The Shadow World.
I've got you hooked.
Well, not just started. I'm on, I don't really know how far. I haven't added it to Goodreads yet because I'm lazy. But I've gotten far enough in that the primes are starting to arrive for the council meeting.
Okay.
So that's how far into it I am, which is not, you know, real far, but...
Right.
And it's going to be interesting, I have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this whole thing that Miranda has, you know, learned about faith.
Yeah. It gets to be a very twisty, turny little saga. And it only gets worse, so just a warning. Yeah.
Well, I took book 1 and 2 to my friend Talitha today. Because, you know, I have to spread the love.
Yay.
I was like, have you ever, I sent her a text message, like, have you ever read anything by Dianne Sylvan? She's like, not that I know of. I was like, would you like to? Because I have 2 books that would be right up your alley.
Would you like to read them? And in this case, your answer should be yes, you do.
Well, she's one of the few people around here that actually reads a lot of the same stuff that I do, so we do a lot of passing books back and forth.
Now, that's the one that came with you to Chattanooga, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So I took her the first 2, and I have a feeling once she gets through them, she's going to be like, okay, so when are you bringing book 3? Well, that'll be kind of hard to do, because I don't actually have a physical copy yet.
That's just another reason to go to McKay.
Yeah. Maybe once I get my new tires, which will hopefully be next week, fingers crossed, and I will feel more comfortable about driving my car further than, you know, work.
Right.
And I can plan a trip.
Well, I'm not reading a whole lot right now. I started The Magicians just because we're getting ready to talk about it next week. But other than that, I think I mentioned last week that I was reading Someday Maybe by Lauren Graham, and I finished that, and it was really good. It was really cute. She's actually a really good writer. I was very impressed. So, other than that, I'm not reading a whole lot. I'm kind of taking a breather. I think I've really digested a lot of stuff very quickly, which is why I'm pretty much at my reading goal for the year, and it's only October.
I kind of did the same thing because, you know, I didn't read much at all at the beginning of the year, and even I've caught up to the point where I'm like 5 books ahead.
Uh-huh.
Even though I was like, I don't know, at one point I was like 10 books behind. So I've sort of, I know how you feel. You devour a lot in a short amount of time, and it gets a little overwhelming.
Well, it's that, and it's also, I've kind of gotten a little bit behind in my reviews over on my blog, and I've just had a whole bunch of other stuff going on where it's easier to, and I feel weird even saying this, but it's easier to watch videos instead of reading right now for me, whether it's on TV or whether it's on the internet, and that's not usually how I feel.
Well, my reading time is about to be even more compromised because a lot of the shows that I watch, their fall premieres have come on.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, because Supernatural started back, Arrow started back, but I've still got to get caught up on Arrow. I still have like 6 episodes from the last season that I haven't watched. The new season of American Horror Story started, which I never finished last season, but that one's not as necessary to finish last season before watching the new season because they're completely unrelated.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things where each season tells a completely different story. Like, they're not interconnected in any way. It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, sounds it.
Well, the first one was just American Horror Story, and it was about this family that lived in this house, and a bunch of weird stuff was going on. Well, season 2 was American Horror Story Asylum, which was set in a crazy house where a bunch of weird stuff was going on. And this one is American Horror Story Coven, which is about witches.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
And believe it or not, this is from the people who created Glee.
Well, you have to let your dark demons out somewhere. Glee's not really the place, so.
No. So they created American Horror Story, and each season is a different horror story. It's basically each season is like kind of like a mini series. Because they're individual stories. They have a lot of the same actors in each season, but they tell different stories. It's kind of cool.
Sounds like
and I don't usually like horror movies and horror type stuff, but I'm kind of hooked on it. But I will tell you, it's one of those shows that did you ever watch Lost?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, you know how you kind of had to start from the beginning and watch all of it to figure out what in the crap was going on?
Yes.
That's kind of how each season of American Horror Story is. You can't just jump into the middle. You have to start at the beginning because it's kind of a slow reveal type thing.
Okay.
So, yeah. I spent the first half of season 1, me and Holly, when we started watching it, we spent the first half of season 1 texting each other back and forth saying, I still don't understand what in the crap's going on. It wasn't until about halfway through the season that things sort of started, falling into place.
Well, sometimes that happens.
But it's really good. Especially if you do like horror type stuff.
Yeah, it's not my thing. See, I do better. I can read horror, but I have a hard time watching it. And I don't know why, because usually the stuff that I picture in my head is way worse.
See, that's me. I'm the same way.
Oh, I don't know.
But I haven't had any problems with American Horror Story because it's not really been scary so much as it's just been weird.
Okay.
So. But yeah, a lot of TV shows are starting back up. White Collar's fixing to start back up. Archer comes back in January. All of my TV shows are coming back on, and my DVR is perilously close to being full, so I've got to work on that. I'll probably watch Supernatural tonight before I go to bed.
Of course. Because you love it.
I do. Sam and Dean are pretty.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into tonight's topic. These will be the books that we are most looking forward to that are coming out next year, because it is basically the middle of October now. We have a month and a half before 2014. No, two and a half months. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Me and numbers lately, it's been a crazy week. So 2.5 months until 2014. How did that happen?
I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure out where August went. And here it is October.
Yeah, so.
But part of my problem is the fact that I have a job now and I work. And that makes time fly by faster.
Yeah. I can see how it would do that. But it's crazy to me that this year has gone by so fast. But at the same time, reading-wise, it's kind of nice because there are a lot of really good books that are getting ready to come out next year.
Yeah.
And a lot of them that we have been waiting for quite a while.
Although I cheated and 2 of the ones on my list technically come out later this year.
Okay, fine.
Well, I can't help it because I'm looking forward to these as much as I'm looking forward to some of the ones in 2014, and I'm going to lose my mind if I don't get them soon.
Oh, well, fine. Well, we will allow it this once.
I will mention them first and get them out of the way since they're, chronologically first.
Okay. Go right ahead.
That's the Shadowhunter Codex.
Oh, yeah.
Which comes out, this month or next month, I believe. And I really, 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 really want it. And I will own it. Because, yeah. And The Royal Ranger by John Flanagan. And I thought he had finished the Ranger's Apprentice series. It was over. It was done. We were moving on to the Brother Band Chronicles, which is, a different story set in the same universe.
Uh-huh.
But then he decides he has to write one more Ranger's Apprentice book, and it's about Will after he's a full ranger and takes an apprentice of his own.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but I have a feeling, judging by the description on Fantastic Fiction, I am going to cry when I read this book. It's going to be a tearjerker, and when I shared the information about it on the tavern, because, Marita has read all of them too,
mm-hmm.
and she loved them as much as I did, she's like, I'm going to be crying right there with you. And it comes out in November. So I've definitely got to get a hold of it when it comes out. I am going to buy all of the Ranger's Apprentice books. I love them that much.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're awesome. They're the kind of thing that I will read over and over and over again just because I love Will and Halt so much. And they're kind of like right up there with the Bulgariad as far as I read this because I have a soft spot for the characters.
Right.
So they're up there on the list. So I'm my head's going to explode before the Royal Ranger comes out.
That's cool. The first one on my list, it actually comes out next year in March. And since we just talked about this series last week, it's Shadowbound, which is book 5 in the Shadow World series by Dianne Sylvan.
Yes, and that's on my list too, although I'm only reading book 3.
Well, see, the thing is when we talked about it last week, we talked about the signets and how they choose the Prime and the Queen, and they're never fully explained, and their history has kind of disappeared into the sands of time. I mean, people don't even really remember. There's no record of how they came to be, and I'm really curious about how they work and where they came from, and I believe that book 5 is going to get a little bit more into that.
Good, because I want to know too.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
it's not so much just that I want to know, but she's building up to this big reveal about the signets.
Yeah, you know it's not going to be something just, oh, well, by the way, this, and that's it. It's not going to be some simple, cheap throwaway thing. It's going to be major. And I think it probably has something to do with something that happened in book 4, which I can't talk about yet.
That will suit you.
Right. But that's another thing. When you read it, you'll know.
Kind of like I did in book 2?
Yeah. Where you sent me the big Facebook message, oh my gosh, this and this and this. I'm like, yep, you got to that part. Welcome. Yeah. But
I have to say, you mentioned that she lost a lot of fans because of that. She didn't lose me.
Good.
And it's because, like I told you, I'm going to try to say this without giving anything away. The fact that that character is not perfect actually appeals to me, because when you have a character who does something like that or has a flaw like that, then you have a lot of room for character development and character growth. Right. So, I mean, and plus, we have enough perfect vampire boys to lust after.
Well, yeah, that was just it, and I think that was part of it because a lot of people were expecting, it's David. You can say it's David, and he really screws up and does some really bad, stupid things, and I call it the Edward Cullen syndrome.
Yeah.
Because it started with the Twilight books, and then it just kind of evolved after that, but a lot of these vampire stories, they expect this, the vampire boy is supposed to be perfect and godlike and just
above fault,
all over dreamy, and everybody was expecting David to be the same way. You know, kind of geeky, kind of a workaholic, but essentially just your perfect sexy vampire boy. Well, he's not. Nowhere near. And he comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of problems and a lot of things that he wasn't completely honest about.
Mm-hmm.
And so
which
they have to deal with that.
I don't really think that it was so much of he was dishonest as I do believe it was on his part. It was actually an honest oversight.
Yeah, it was more an omission.
Yeah, it was like, oh wait, I didn't tell you that.
Tell you that. Oops. Yeah. So, but yeah, to me it was refreshing because okay, I was gonna say he's human. He's not, but you know, he makes mistakes.
Well, that's exactly it though. It was a very human thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And people tend to focus on the fact that they're vampires and lose sight of the fact that despite the fact that they are vampires, they were once human.
Right.
So they're going to retain some of that humanity, or they should.
Just because they're immortal doesn't mean that they're infallible.
Right. Just because you lose the ability to die doesn't mean you lose the ability to, you know, screw up.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't. But yeah, that was one of the things that made me, I'm not gonna say that the horrible things that he did made me like David even more, because that just sounds weird. But in a way, it almost did, because it was like, okay, now he has somewhere to go, because he really needs to try and, make up for his mistake, and that's gonna take some work.
Yeah.
You know.
And
the other people who were involved, they have some work to do too.
Yeah.
And they have their own issues to deal with. So I thought that was it was a big, huge complication, and to me that was something to really sink your teeth into, to use a vampire pun. But anyway, so book 5, I've done this every time a new one of these books comes out. I get it and I binge read it in like a day, and nobody can talk to me. The one I got, it was, for some reason, it was like the day after Christmas, and I started it. I must have gotten it for a Christmas present. It was probably up on my list, and I got it and I started reading it that afternoon, and I did end up sleeping at some point, and then finished reading it the next day, like that morning. So that will be what happens when I get Shadowbound. But probably before that happens, or the couple weeks before, I'll start rereading the whole series again, just so that I can be fully prepared to read book 5, because I really need to reread book 4, because I haven't read it again since doing the binge read, and to be honest, you don't always absorb as much as you want to when you read like that. So I need to really reread that one, because a whole bunch of weird stuff happens in book 4. And that's another reason why I need book 5, because not just the thing with the signets, but there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's starting to go on, and it's like, oh, okay, now we really need to see where she's going with this. I'm sure she's going somewhere. Yeah. I have no idea where.
Yeah, I mean, maybe by the time book 5 comes out, I'll be caught up. I mean, surely.
Oh, yeah, you've got plenty of time. Not a problem.
And we can both get it and binge read it and then, flail at each other on Facebook.
Yes.
Oh, my God! Well, we have to make an agreement, though, that we can't do that until we both finish reading it.
Or at least you have to get, okay, what page are you on?
Yeah.
Okay, now we can talk about this. Yeah.
Are you past chapter 4 yet?
Yeah. No, that's a definite thing, because I want to know your reaction to this, especially the stuff in book 4. I mean, book 3 too, but book 4. Like I said, a lot of crazy stuff going on in book 4. But anyway, moving on. What is the next one on your list?
City of Heavenly Fire.
Yes.
By Cassandra Clare.
That one's on my list too, oddly enough.
Oddly? Yes, that's very odd.
It's so weird.
Yeah. This is another one of those that I'm pretty sure I'm going to explode before I read it, because so much stuff happens in City of Lost Souls.
Mm-hmm.
it's like, this is the next to the last book. She needs to kind of start tying off some of these loose ends, not stirring up more stuff. But yeah, things have gotten kind of crazy at this point, and I can't wait to see how she's going to end this. Because City of Heavenly Fire is the last book in the Mortal Instruments.
And it comes out in May.
Yes. It's not the last Shadowhunter book, because
No.
she started a new Shadowhunter series after this. But it's the last Mortal Instruments. It's the last Clare and Jace.
Right.
I mean, they'll probably turn up in the Infernal Devices. As a matter of fact, she said they will definitely turn up. But the book will not be centered on them, because Infernal Devices is going to take place at the Institute in Los Angeles.
No, the Dark Artifices.
Dark Artifices. Sorry.
Yeah.
She said they will definitely turn up in that. And since it's in Los Angeles, they're not going to be central to it, because they're going to be in New York.
Right.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how she wraps up all this stuff that's happened in the Mortal Instruments.
Because a lot of stuff's going on there, too.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is one of those that every time I read a new Shadowhunter book, I think my head's going to explode before I get the next one.
Yeah.
Because she is a master of, oh my god, endings.
She is at that. I will give her that for sure.
So, that one I'm really excited about.
All right. Well, the next one on my list is this is a series. It's not really a series. The 3 books. Well, there's only 2 out right now. Book 3 comes out next year. There's really only they're not really connected so much as they're just sort of set sort of around the same people. But the book that's coming out next year, it's called Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. And this is one of the authors that I got to meet. She was on a book tour with Maureen Johnson when I went over to Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
And she's absolutely adorable, for one thing. And I always like to read books by authors who I like as people, as opposed to just, authors that I don't know anything about.
Right.
If I know that the author seems like a nice person and they're fun to follow on Twitter, it makes me want to read their stuff more.
Right.
And so I read the first book in this trio, which was Anna and the French Kiss, and then the second one was Lola and the Boy Next Door. And they're really cute, funny, kind of YA rom-com-y, sort of. They're really sweet, and they don't cross over very much. I mean, 2 of the characters from Anna and the French Kiss, they appear in Lola's story, but really just on the outside. You don't have to know what happened to them necessarily in the first book.
They're kind of just a shared universe kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah, except it's not a fantasy. It takes place just in the U.S. I think the first 2 books were in San Francisco. Well, no, the first one was in Paris at a American boarding school, but the second one was in San Francisco. And the third one, I think, is in New York. Well, it's in France, and then it's in New York. Anyway, but they're really cute books, and they're real fun. They're not these. Since I read a lot of fantasy, you get sucked into a lot of these big, huge, epic stories.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's just nice to read something that's more lighthearted and sweet and funny, and the whole universe isn't at stake.
Yeah.
Because while those are fun to read, they're also exhausting.
They really are. I know exactly what you mean. That's why I enjoy things like Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum series.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're fun.
Yeah.
And they're light, and they're not, Stephanie is by no means going to save the world. She's not even going to save New Jersey. She does good to save herself.
Right.
So, I mean, they're just, I know exactly what you mean. That's why I enjoy reading things like those. And to a certain extent, the J.D. Robb books, while, she may not save the universe, but she's probably going to save New York. But they're a little bit lighter and a little bit less
Angsty.
Exhausting to read. Yeah.
I read a lot of angst-ridden stuff from time to time, and so, it's just refreshing. It's like a breath of fresh air.
We're still working through our teenage angst.
Yeah, well. See, I wasn't that angsty when I was a teenager, so I guess it just came late.
Yeah, see, maybe that's it, because I wasn't really either.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. If it's
late onset teenage angst.
Right.
It just come on to you're in your 30s.
That just doesn't seem right. It's like I can't go and like have like this meltdown and go into this dark emo period. It's like, no, I gotta go to soccer practice. That just destroys the mood.
I can't be dark and emo. I'm a soccer mom.
Exactly.
Oh, Lord. Speaking of JD Robb, she has one coming out called Thankless in Death, which I'm excited about. Even though I haven't read the one prior to it, it's laying on my nightstand waiting for me to read it. But I love all of her books. Eve Dallas is, well, we've discussed my thing for cop procedurals before.
Mm-hmm.
And this just falls into that category because Lieutenant Eve Dallas, these are kind of rom-com meets science fiction novel meets cop procedural.
Uh-huh.
They're very interesting. And they're not totally out there science fiction with like giant chipmunk aliens.
Yeah, like some books we might mention.
Like some books we may have read in the past. It's set in 2060, and the technology that appears in it is not so far-fetched that it's hard to imagine that matter of fact, they have things called PPCs, they're basically smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do basically what you can do with an iPhone or an Android. You can look people up, you can look up, Wikipedia, they have voice recognition in their cars, and it's all stuff that we're actually starting to see how our technology is going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like it, because it's a little more realistic of science fiction.
Right.
And then, like I said, the cop procedural thing, and then you have the rom-com part comes in because you have Eve and her husband, and, there's a lot of funny parts. There is one particular book where they come to Alabama,
mm-hmm.
and they're in the front yard at a farm, and Eve hears a bullfrog, and she wants to pull her gun on it. And it made me laugh because there are bullfrogs in the woods behind my house.
Uh-huh.
And I hear bullfrogs sing a lot. And she's freaking out because she says it sounds like it's huge. Like, the size of a cat. She thinks this thing's like the size of a cow. I'm like, no. You could hold it in your hand. It's not going to eat you. But then again, she's also afraid of cows. She thinks cows are going to rise up and take over the world.
Okay.
She's a city girl, born and bred. She's never been around a farm or animals. She doesn't like cows. It's really funny. You should read them at some point. They're definitely amusing. So yeah, I'm pretty excited that she's still writing. I was afraid when she did New York to Dallas that she was getting ready to wrap the series up, and she may still be. She may be working towards it because there's like 30 some odd books in this series, and she writes like 2 of them a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on top of the stuff that she puts out as Nora Roberts. So she's a very prolific writer.
Yeah.
So I think she may be, I haven't read this newest one, she may be working towards wrapping this series up. And if it doesn't end with Eve making Captain, I'm going to be PO'd. Because even in 2060, I think they're actually up to 2062 now. Even in 2062, New York, it's odd for a female police officer, detective, to make captain. So she's been a lieutenant the whole time I've been reading the book. So if it doesn't end with her making captain, I'm going to be seriously irked. And I will probably write nasty emails to, or make nasty posts on Facebook about Nora Roberts.
Well, the next one I wanted to bring up is another, well, it's probably another book that, if it's not on your list, then it should be at least on your radar, possibly, because you conned me into having to read the entire series in a short period of time. And I am talking about book 6 in the Mythos Academy series.
Yes, it's not actually on my list, but that's just because it was an oversight.
Yeah. So it's called Killer Frost by Jennifer Estep, of course, friend of our show. She's tweeted us a couple times, which was always fun. Yes. And there's a lot of stuff going on in this one, from what I can see. I'm just looking at the Goodreads stuff. I need to reread her books because there's a lot of things about them I don't remember. But
you did read them quite quickly.
Well, that is also true. We were talking about the binge reading thing. So yeah, I had to go pretty quickly through these to get to the new one that we reviewed on the show a while back. But basically, it looks like Gwen is getting ready to go and fight Loki.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So.
For somebody.
Yeah.
Not for Gwen.
But it looks like it's gonna get. I mean, it was getting pretty serious in the last book that we read, but this one it seems like they're amping it up. It looks like. So, and that'll be.
You sort of have to assume that this is where it was headed the entire time.
Right.
Gwen being who she is and Loki being who he is. So, yeah, I'm definitely anxious about that one too because those are so good.
Mhm. They are really good and they're really clever and creative. It was a whole bunch of things put together that I would never have thought of combining, but she does it and it works.
Yes.
And it sounds like, now I don't know this for sure, but it sounds like this might be the last one.
Aw. All good things must come to an end.
Because I'm looking at the synopsis on Goodreads, and it says, the very last sentence says, this time Loki and his Reapers are going down for good, or I am. That sounds pretty final.
Yes.
So, of course you could come up with a book 7 idea and then be just kidding. But I don't think so, because these seem to be pretty well planned out.
One thing that always annoys me when an author tries to keep writing a series beyond the point where they should have ended it.
Yeah.
It's like, let it die gracefully, don't run it into the ground.
True.
Stop while it's good before it gets crazy and ridiculous and people get tired of it.
Mhm. Agreed.
So, if it's the last one, if she just doesn't have anything else, any other stories to tell, then, can't really complain.
No, I mean, it's been a good ride, so hey.
Shady's Lackey did that with her Herald of Valdemar books. She stopped writing those to focus on other things and wrote like the 500 Kingdoms and did some collaborations, and she said, I don't have any other Herald stories to tell right now. She said, if I ever have another one, I'll start writing them again. And she did. She wrote the Collegium Chronicles. And while I love the Collegium Chronicles, there are lots of us who call ourselves Shady's Lackey fans who would like to grab Misty and shake her until she gives us the story of the founding of Valdemar. Because that's what we all want. How they got away from the Eastern Empire and founded their own kingdom out here in the middle of the desert and became Haven. That's what we want. Give it to us. So, yeah. And these are some that are probably on your list. There's 3 of them by the same author, and they all come out next year. And that is Wild Things and Blood Games, which are book 9 and 10 of the Chicagoland Vampires.
Oh, yes.
And Howling for You, which is her novella about Jeff Christopher and his girlfriend Fallon. And I want them all. Because I love Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff's awesome. And a book that's just about Jeff should be awesome.
Definitely.
And I have to wonder if Blood Games is going to be the last Chicagoland Vampires, because 10 is a nice round number.
Yeah.
I will be very sad if it is, but again, go out while you're on top. Don't make us sick of it before you stop writing them.
Right. And with some of them, it's I don't know how far you can draw it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty complicated story, and there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of characters to wrap up, but at the same time, it's not so complex that
we need 5 more books.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't see it going to 15, could you?
No. I'm thinking 10 maybe. I think what would be interesting would be to wrap up Chicagoland Vampires and kind of shoehorn in over to doing something about the shifters.
Now that would be interesting.
And that may be, this Howling for You may be a bridge for that.
Yeah, possibly.
To see how that's received.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it would be received well, because the shifters are awesome. Gabriel is awesome.
Yes.
And, you know, stories about the shifters and their pack dynamics and pack politics and all the things that go on with the shifters that we don't see in the Chicagoland Vampires because we're following around the vampires.
Right.
I think it has possibilities. She could do that.
And you would be okay with that plan?
Yes, I would. And I want to take this opportunity to say that she has finally given me somebody that she says could play Ethan that I agree with.
Oh, really?
Yes. See, before it's always been David Beckham, which Beckham doesn't really do it for me.
Me neither.
And he doesn't really scream Ethan to me.
Well, I mean, he's okay to look at. It just, I mean, otherwise, but then he starts talking. Yeah, he has this really weird, high-pitched, kind of whiny sounding British voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can't do that for a vampire.
Well, she shared a picture. I follow her page on Facebook, and she shares a picture the other day. As a matter of fact, I think I posted this on your timeline. It was a picture of Chris Hemsworth in his role in the new movie Rush.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that's an Ethan I can get behind.
Oh, I could see that.
Because he's got the long blonde hair.
Yeah.
And his eyes aren't green, they're blue. But again, niggling detail. If he could nail the character. And he's got that deep voice, and he's built quite nicely.
Yes.
I could get behind Chris Hemsworth. I could just get behind Chris Hemsworth. But I'm down with Chris Hemsworth as Ethan, because that one, she shared that picture and I was just like, yes. Much better than David Beckham. Much, much better. And you know, he was awesome as Thor.
See, I haven't seen any of those.
Oh my god, you have to watch all of the Marvel universe. Disney has done amazing things with Marvel.
I've heard that. I mean, I've heard they're really good. It's just I haven't had the opportunity to do it.
I have 2 words for you.
Okay.
Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
He wrote the screenplay and directed the Avengers. I mean, Joss Whedon he is a nerd god.
I know. And I like him. It's just, it's not for lack of wanting. It's just been lack of time.
Yes. But, yes. Oh, Sleepy Hollow is on. I forgot that comes on tonight. Anyway, another show that I'm trying to keep up with that's interfering with my reading. It's a very odd take on Sleepy Hollow. But anyway, sidetrack. But yes, definitely you need to see what Disney is doing with Marvel. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, the Avengers, they're great. And they're making Iron Man 3's out, they're making Thor 2, they're making the Avengers 2, they're making another Captain America. I'm like, oh my god, I need them all.
Yeah, but I've heard that they were great. It's just, and I'm probably going to see them eventually, but it's just the time it gets away from me. If I mention that it's October. God.
I'm kind of a comic book geek anyway, and I love comic book to movie adaptations, and I am a Marvel girl, I've always preferred Marvel to DC. So, yeah, I love the Marvel Universe movies since Disney bought it out. I don't really understand why they felt it necessary to remake Spider-Man, and I haven't seen those because I like the ones that were made before Disney bought the rights.
I've heard good things about them, though.
Yeah, well, they tell the right story. The other ones kind of didn't because the other ones ignored Gwen Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put that part of the story in there. They had Peter bitten in high school and Mary Jane was there, and we kind of ignored the fact that Gwen Stacy was his woman before Mary Jane. So at least they told the right story. I just haven't watched them. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, tangent. Okay. The next one on my list is the second book in a series. I'm guessing it's a series. I don't know how many books there are planned. But it is called Hollow City by Ransom Riggs. And it is the sequel to Miss Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children.
See, I'm going to read that at some point.
I loved that book. It was so good. It was so different and clever, the way that he took all of these old photographs and made them into a story. And it's got some creepy moments, it's got some heartwarming moments, it's got some really interesting ways that they kind of play with history a little bit. And I loved Miss Peregrine's. And when I saw that there was a continuation, because the end of that book, you could go on, but then at the same time, you could kind of see if it was going to be the end that it didn't have to continue.
Right.
If that makes sense. But then I saw that they were coming out with a second one, and I was like, oh, yay, that's cool. So, I'm really looking forward to that. And it's really hard to talk about what they're doing with book 2 without completely spoiling book 1. So, and as of right now, looks like there's no plans for a third book. So this might just be a 1-2 punch. But this one's coming out in January. So I don't have as long to wait for this one.
No.
And looking at the cover, it looks like he's going to be doing more with the photographs again, because there's another one on the cover that looks really cool. So
I'll get around to reading that at some point.
Oh, it's really good. I think you would really like it.
Well, the last one on my list is one that I posted a review. I got the ARC from NetGalley. And that's the first book was Charming by Elliot James.
Mm-hmm.
And it was book 1 of Pax Arcana. So there's plans for a book 2. I just don't know what book 2 is going to be called. So, or when it's going to come out, but it's coming out apparently sometime next year. And I can't wait because I really, really like those characters. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen with John and the Knights and all that jazz, because there's some twists and turns in there too that I definitely need book 2. And sort of, I was going to mention the Academy series by C.L. Stone, but apparently book 2 and 3 of that's already out. And I missed it somehow. So I need to find those. But yeah, you can read my review. I posted a review of Charming on our website. But that's the one where this guy, it sort of takes the fairy tale version of Prince Charming and turns it on its ear. And the Charmings are, Prince Charming is not Prince Charming, it's a family, the Charming family. And they're all part of an offshoot branch of the Knights Templar.
Okay.
And they have this geese in their head that if there's things like vampires and werewolves and all that jazz going on, and as long as they're not doing anything to stir up trouble or make themselves known to humans, the Knights leave them alone. But if they start being very obvious and causing a lot of problems, then the knights have this compulsion in their brain that they have to do something about it. They have to kill them or stop them or whatever. Well, the problem is, John Charming, the main character, he was a knight, but the problem was his mother was bitten by a werewolf while she was pregnant with him, and he was born before she hit her first full moon, so he was born before she ever changed, and he was raised a knight, and he's never shifted. He's never become a fully fledged werewolf till, something happens in book 1.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really interesting, and he's hiding from the knights. He's left the knights, and basically told them in their ear, and he hides from them, and he gets caught up with Sig, who is a tall, leggy, blonde female who is Valkyrie. So yeah, it's very interesting.
It sounds like it.
So book 2 should be, interesting as well. So there's lots of stuff that I want to read. I'm sure there are more than this. It's just, if I sat down and looked them all up, we would be here all night.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, all I had to do was just start flipping through my Goodreads stuff and saying, okay, this series has a book coming out, this series has a book coming out, this is coming out. The last one I'm probably going to talk about is called Requiem by Maggie Stiefvater.
Yes.
And this is her Books of Fairy series. Requiem is book 3. The first 2 books are Lament and Ballad. And I like her take on the fairies because there's a lot of music kind of involved in it. The first 2 books, they're told from 2 different characters' points of view, but they're at a conservatory for music. So they're both music students, and that's part of how the fairies have been attracted to them in some ways. And it's been a while since I've read the first 2, but they're really good. And like I said, it's a nice, interesting take on fairies. And so book 3 will be coming out next year. I don't remember when, but I've actually been waiting for this one for a while. It's taken me, well, because I discovered the first ones actually when I first found out that my library does the digital lending.
Yeah, I'm so glad the libraries around here are catching on to that.
It's awesome. And so I was just kind of looking around, and I saw this book and was like, oh, it's about fairies. Okay, well, this will give me a chance to try it out. And then I did try it out, and it was, all different kinds of awesome.
Gotta love it when that happens.
Oh, wait, hang on. Now, why did the one thing I see say that it was coming out in 2004? Because now this is saying it's coming out in 2015. Well, shoot.
Pooh.
Well, because book 2 came out in 2009, so it was going to be a big deal that the book 3 was going to finally be here. Well, darn it, I swear I saw something that said that it came out in 2014. Well, that just makes me sad. Oh, well.
You should read her, you bought Shiver, didn't you?
I did.
That series was really good. Wolves of Mercy Fall, I think, is the name of the series.
Yeah. And it's on my stack of things to read. It's fairly far down on the stack, though, because I didn't get it that long ago, so but I do plan on reading it. She's had several other, I guess she's concentrating more on some other series that she's working on, which might be why.
Yeah.
Because
Neill also has another series. It's completed, but I definitely want to read it, and I have them as ebooks, and that's her Dark Elite series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read those at some point, but I should probably focus on the Magicians before next week.
That would be a good idea.
Since, I'm supposed to be able to do a podcast and have a remotely intelligent conversation about it.
Well, are there any other books that you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I believe that covers it. I'll think of something after we hang up and I go, eat supper, something will occur to me that
Of
I want
course.
to mention. Because that's how it works. But, no, I think that's about it. Those are the main ones that I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that there are more that I can come up with, but we don't need this episode to be 5 hours long. So, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up then. If there are any books that you are looking forward to, either next year or 2015, like I accidentally realized, that just makes me sad. Seriously, I was really excited when I saw it was coming out next year. Oh well. Anyway, but if there's any other books that we haven't mentioned that you are really looking forward to, we would love to hear about it. You can send us an email. We are bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a tweet. On Twitter, we are @bibanonpodcast, or you can always leave comments over on our official website, www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com. And I think that'll do it. Join us next week when we are talking about The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Give it a read. Find out whether it's just me that had issues with it. Because, like I said, everybody else that I know, when I first heard about this book, it was because people were raving about it. So I was like, oh, okay, then this should be awesome.
Yeah.
To me, it wasn't. So I just want to find out. Maybe it was me and not the book. So prove me wrong. That's your challenge. That is your homework for this week.
We'll see.
But anyway, until then, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.